Okay, beautiful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for your patience and for all the efforts which you have made to want to be in the class and the sacrifices to put aside every other thing to be here with me. And I believe for the efforts you're putting in, we are really advancing. If we can continue like this, you would come up or come out rather with a flying color and you will do well, because there is no other magic in examination. First of all, it is hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work. And then secondly, it's understanding. As you're putting in the hard work, you just have to ensure that you're understanding what you are doing. That is putting the hard work in the right direction. So today we're going to be rounding up with the chapter we were yesterday. Few slides away from now, we will be moving into a new chapter. Yesterday we have done so much, and today is a new day, and I believe our pace is pretty good. So I'm going to share here my screen with you, and you will confirm to me from where you are that you can view my screen from there. Can you view my screen?
Yes, it's analyze how electronic system can be used to help the sourcing of requirements from external suppliers.
That is beautiful. You know, this is actually a digital world as we speak. As we speak, we are even in the metaverse world. So how can we use electronic system to help our sourcing requirements from the external supervisor on what area? And here we have about 4 areas that we can leverage on electronic system. The first one is in the requisition. In the requisition aspect, we are saying that we can make it electronical. Okay? In the requisition process, we can make it electronical in a way that it can be digital. We can make requisition online and make purchase ordering online. Then we would be able to have online catalogs, electronic format of catalogs, where which we go in there through the internet, and then we see the list of products that the supplier has to sell and their attributes. That's their description. Number 3 is the use of electronic for the auctions and reverse auctions. Then in the tendering process too, we can send out invitation to tender electronically and still get suppliers' response electronically. So now let's go in and take a look at them. So electronic sourcing can actually take several forms, like we had looked at 4 different aspects. That's the e-requisition, the e-catalog, the e-auctions, the e-tenders. And all these have their own merits and demerits. That is their own advantages and disadvantages. For the advantage of the electronic format, it helps you to be very, very fast in the process. Okay? And through it, you can assess a large pool of suppliers. You can assess suppliers in different countries at the international front.
Yeah.
Is that useful?
Yes.
And then through the electronic format, you can break into a large pool of information, just like going into Google. You can even access large and different kinds of websites to retrieve certain information that you need. It's unlimited, actually. And you can access fewer restrictions on working hours because the internet is always there. When they are sleeping in Baghdad, in Nigeria, they could be awake somehow, even if they are getting ready to go to bed. In America, They could be rightly awake with their eyes shining and ready to go to work. Same thing could be applicable in Iran. So it's easier to work globally. These are pretty good advantages of electronic sourcing. And it's also encourage and promote environmental friendly objectives, because you are not using papers, so you may not be littering or maybe polluting the system. But now, talking about all these disadvantages, advantages rather, they are not without their own disadvantages. Number one is less personal. Two is communication can be misinterpreted, because you can never account for how the next man can understand the kind of information you have in your website or in the letter that or in the email that you are sending it.
Yeah, you're right.
Because everybody is entitled to the way they understand things. And when you're not there to want to start explaining certain things back and front, it becomes cumbersome. And it's very, very not good for us to totally rely on technology. That can impose a risk of failure. If everything is there on the internet, and when there is no power, maybe the kind of internet failure, what would happen? We may not be able to do business. Automatically, we are out of business. And this can promote a kind of negative work-life balance, because you do not have your colleague to spend time with, to understand them and to know how both of you can work better and perform better. You're working with somebody for 5-10 years, you don't know the person's character, but sometimes it's still good. Okay, so e-requisition and purchasing ordering system. Here now, I want us to take a look at it. The e-requisition is the use of electronic system to raise and approve requisition. This has taken over from paper methods in many organizations. Do you know now what is requisition? Now take a look at your organization. For instance, in a user department, a particular department could be the engineering, it could be procurement department. Maybe they want certain things. Maybe a computer, maybe they need a ream of paper, and they want to request it. They would have to ensure that they have it well described, and before they can forward it to whosoever that has a right to approve of it, before accounts can release the form. So that is requisition. Now, instead of you doing it manually by taking up a pen and paper, writing it down and forwarding it to senior management, you can make a mail. And automatically, if in a place where we have Oracle, you can make your requisition there, and everybody that are responsible could see them and then make approval or reject them automatically. So that is about requisition. It is faster like that. What about e-catalogs? The e-catalogs could be descriptions of items. Menus could be placed on the internet for buyers to access, and also for sellers too to access. So we also do the e-auctions. Online auctions are typically one of two formats. First of all, standard auctions, that is the e-auction. Suppliers offer goods for sale on the internet. Potential customer bids against the items. And this is a well-known global standard that eBay is using. You know eBay, the online store.
Sure.
That is a format. Auctioning is their format.
Yeah.
So now, auction is when you place the item in the market electronically, and they come in to place their prices. The buyers will come and place their prices. Or maybe if it is a contract, the suppliers are coming to make their quote. And then you look at it and say, at this level, I'm going to give it to this or that. But for a product that is being sampled in the market, the buyer would be waiting, sorry, the seller would be waiting for the highest bidder to sell the products to. That is e-auction. Then the reverse auction, instead of the seller putting up the product in the market for the buyer to come and buy, it is the buyer that is putting up a contract in the market for sellers to come and bid. So since it's a reverse process, the buyer haven't stated their own requirement, the suppliers will respond and the buyer will look at the lowest bidder in a way, but according to the MEAT, the most economical and advantageous tender technique that we've been hammering on, and then awards the contract, having scrutinized the supplier to see if they are compatible with their organization. So even tendering too can also adopt the same process. All right. Yeah. So there are certain benefits for doing that. We talked about it, but let's take a look at them in this way. The first one is the process could be very, very much efficient. There would be consistency. Why? Because if you have a document forwarded on the internet, the document remains the same. It's easy for you to trail it. There's technological safeguarding. It saves time and free up spaces. And it encourages cross-functionality, mutuality. So to say, different departments can work pretty well. Why? In a system like Oracle, we can interact very, very well. That's why we say it promotes cross-functionality. And it is environmental friendly. Remember, you're not generating paper that much.
Sure, yeah.
And it's easy to screen bids because you have the standard interpolated into the system and you say, if this is below this, reject. If this is within this range, accept. So once you have it been dumped, the system will scan through it and give you the most qualified ones for you to choose among. So it has reduced risk. And certain assurances could be gotten there. Then auditing is very, very easy because the documents are right there. All messages sent out, the trails are kept. It's easy. And it enhances transparency.
Okay. Clear.
So this brings us to chapter 3. Okay? It brings us to chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
In chapter 3, we have to understand compliance issues when sourcing from suppliers. And remember, compliance is a measure of ethical and responsible sourcing. What are we looking at to learn in this chapter? By the end of this chapter, we will have certain understanding of compliance issues that buyers, procurement professionals may face when sourcing from within different sectors, whether globally or locally, nationally or internationally. This is what we want to talk about compliances. Yeah. So the first section here talks about compare the key legislative, regulatory, and organizational requirements when sourcing in the not-for-profit, private, and public sectors.
So under this section, we'll take a look at the competitive tendering. Within the public sector, we'll look at the competitive tendering. Within the private sector, we'll look at the competitive tendering within the not-for-profit sectors. And we'll also analyze the key regulations that may affect all these three sectors put together. We'll talk about sourcing in these three areas. Yeah. So competitive tendering within the public, private, and not-for-profit sectors. These are three sectors that we have in this knowledge area for us to discuss. So it is quite expedient for you as a procurement professional to take an approach that is fair and reasonable when working with current potential suppliers. The key word there is an approach that is fair. Fairness. So always avoid discrimination. Treat suppliers equally and respectfully. And ensure that you are transparent in all that you're doing. You may want to check the CIPS Code of Conduct of 2015 to be conversant with what is required of you. Do you know what competitive tendering is? It's like you opening up for potential suppliers to come and bid, and then to show what they have got, to show their capabilities as against the other. You know, when when tenderings are competitive, you would tend to have a fairness of pricing. Yeah, easily you get a fairness of pricing because the suppliers will fight themselves to stand still. And everyone and anyone would know that if my price is higher than the next man, which means I should be supplying a better quality, or else I am out of the tendering. So that's one good thing to encourage competitive tendering. So let's take a look at the advantages. It's receiving equal attention and opportunity to clarify queries. Tender may reduce the potential for biased selection of a supplier. This means that the selected supplier may better meet the objective requirements of the tender.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
Now you're looking at it also from your perspective, and some are balancing it with the perspective of the supplier. It gives the stakeholder an opportunity to understand the capabilities of multiple suppliers. Can you see? Because so many of them are coming in. It is competitive. They are fighting themselves, and whoever is going to stand out is going to be the best, or maybe close to the best. So you can check all through, because majority of them are going to be sending their tenderings. Say time, money, and resources could be saved by carrying out one competitive tender. Tendering encourages suppliers to be competitive, and that will result to a better buying organization. Like I said, when they are competitive, you should know that it's time to have value. When they are competitive, it is time for them to give value. When the market is not competitive, suppliers tend to want to treat themselves as important entities for the buyer to come and be begging, and then be ensuring that you have what it takes for them to work with you. So encourage competitive tendering if you have the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are your benefits. Then the disadvantages. Time is of the essence. You may not be able to make a quick selection. In a place where you need a quick selection, you would want to adopt the negotiation tendering approach, where which boom, you go to one supplier or two suppliers and you start negotiating with them directly, and not too long you award the contract. But in a place where you want to do competitive tendering, you just have to be looking at a way for you to be open. So another one, competition may drive the wrong behaviors in suppliers, encouraging them to make unachievable low bids to attract the buyers to select, the resulting in additional cost later in the contract. Now, what are we saying? When there's so much competition, people will want to start faking things, saying things that they cannot, making promises they cannot keep to in real time. And when you go ahead and award the contract to such suppliers, what would happen? At the end of the day, you start losing money, because it may require certain amounts of money to get a good job done. The supplier can lie, bring down their bids in certain areas. And if the buying organization is not smart enough to detect that, they may want to go in. That's why we encourage the procurement professionals to adopt the most economical and advantageous tender approach to choose their suppliers. It may take more time to carry out the validation and the assessment of multiple tenders than it would for just one. Can you see why competitive tendering takes time as compared with negotiation tendering? Yeah. So there are key regulations that affect the public, private, and not-for-profit sector. Some of these key areas of regulation that organization must follow: one is the data protection, ethical practice, health, safety and environmental workers' rights, marketplace competition, product safety standards. So there must be standards. There must be rules and regulations to protect data. Because you wouldn't want to send your information to suppliers and they are sending them out to your competitors, or you wouldn't want to get suppliers' information and yet be sending it back to their competitor. So ethical practices must be involved. You mustn't cut corners. And the way you do business should be healthy. You don't want to put people's lives at risk in the name of trying to generate revenue. You must observe safety, so to say. Safety of the environment, safety of the people that are working with and for you.
Okay.
Then you must ensure that you are treating the workers right. You're treating them well. You're paying them at when due. You're paying them what they are entitled. You're paying them all their entitlement. You are not overusing them and underpaying them. You're not enslaving them. You're not violating any labor law. You're giving them the free hands to interact and to associate. And in the market, you have to encourage marketplace competition. And once, if you're making manufacturing, ensure that your products are of standard and all the safety needs are being put in place. Yeah. But the way sourcing are carried out, the way sourcing is carried out in the public sector is different from the way sourcing is carried out in the private sector and also in the not-for-profit sector. Let's take a look at the public sector. Organizations with public sector are generally owned by the government of the country. where which the buying or the selling organization is based on. For example, the National Health Service in the United Kingdom is a public sector organization. And most of these public sector organizations, all of them rather, are funded by the government, by taxpayers' funds. So therefore, you must ensure there is fairness. You hold them the duty to ensure that there is accountability in processes. There is transparency in processes. Because you're using money generated from taxation. So organization within these sectors depends on government funding. And such organization would have a kind of stringent and very tight budget. And they are under societal pressure to achieve the best value of money, because you must be accountable. You don't want to misappropriate taxpayers' funds. That's a suable, chargeable offense. Because you know there must be audition. Public sector purchases might also be subject to public scrutiny. And so the application of equal treatment, fair competition, and transparency are key. You must open up. You don't want to favor one supplier against the other. There are key regulations that apply to public sector sourcing. We have the Freedom of Information Act in every nation now around the world. This is in play. Freedom of information is in play. The United Kingdom public contract regulations, they have laws, stipulated contractual items that can restrict either the buyer or the seller from doing certain things. Yeah. So we talked about the open procedure. We talked about the restricted procedure. We talked about the competitive procedure. And also, we looked at the negotiation approach also. All these are procedures available in the public sector tendering under the EU 2014 Public Procurement Directives. Okay. There are certain stages within all these areas, but for the UK Public Contract Regulations 2015, the first stage is the specification stage, where which you have to describe the product or the service lavishly. The second stage is the selection stage. And the third, you award the contract. So these are the three stages the public sector organizations in the UK are obliged to observe. Now let's take a look at the impact of time scale on tendering process in the public sector procurement. Yeah, I've said, and I know you know, that competitive tendering takes time. But let's take a look at how the public sector is affected by it. So when sourcing, the purchasing organization will be planning its procurement activities in line with its schedule. So first of all, you must be guided with your schedule. The time where which you want to finish up with everything must be in your mind. And then all your plans, all the activities during that you will be carrying out must be falling in line to deliver the final product or services within the required time. So this is what drives your urgency. Naturally, this schedule will be built around specific deadline that needs to be met. This time scale exists to allow all tenderers a fair and reasonable amount of time. You don't want to give supplier B 3 hours or maybe 3 weeks, and give supplier A 1 week. This is not fair. You have to open it up for all of them to know when to submit tenders and when you are likely to close the receiving of tenders.
Okay.
They should all know the timetable, which means your schedule must be embedded in your ITT. As you're sending it out, they must know the time scale. Contract awarding. The process outlined in the EU 2014 procurement directives are designed to support the buyer in choosing the most economical and advantageous tender. That is what we are looking for. So one thing we learn from the public sector is fairness, equal opportunity to all, being driven by the schedule. Equal opportunity to all, remember these. While in the private sector, we have different aims and different challenges. Okay?
Okay.
The private sector are cascaded into 4 segments. The first one is the primary sector. Second one is the secondary sector. Then we have the tertiary and the quaternary sector, these 4 sectors. So the main purpose of the private sector organization is to make profit from the product or service they sell. They owe shareholders the duty to ensure that they are generating revenue. That is just the aim. So this profit enables them to grow and potentially make more profit. That is their intention. So in many cases, the private sector organizations are in competitive position with other organizations. So their efforts must focus on attracting customers. Okay? Whatever thing they do, they want to ensure that they want to win customers. While in the public sector, they want to ensure that they are using taxpayers' money well. They are given the citizens the free rights and the fairness to participate. So investors generally favor organizations that are aiming to grow, as these are most likely the profitable. And these are most likely the profitable to them, most likely be profitable to them in the larger term. Let's change that to be. Okay. How is that? Investors would only bring money to an organization that is ready to multiply, double their money for them in certain time within an accounting period. So a private sector organization must ensure that it keeps its customer and stakeholder satisfaction to enable continual funding. And continual funding means what? More investment and more profit. So they are profit oriented. They want to satisfy stakeholders and shareholders. Yeah. Can you see how there are different targets, there are different aims? What they are looking at, private sector is what? Money, 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 revenue, 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 profit, profit, profit. Why the other public sector, fairness, openness, accountability of taxpayers' money.
Yes.
Equal opportunity to all. Then the not-for-profit organization. You take a look at the name, you would know what it stands for.
Yes.
They are not actually looking to make profit from their activities. Rather, they want to support certain causes, certain movements in the society. The UN, which you are working with, could be a non-for-profit organization. I don't know, I stand to be corrected. Is it?
Something like that.
Close to that. Huh?
Close to that, yeah, but it's not really.
Not really, right?
Yeah.
That's why I said I stand to be corrected. So though there are certain movements like that, the NGOs that we have, Women for Equality organization. Like today is a Women's Day, right? Hello.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so
you're right.
at this junction, let me wish you happy Women's Day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate.
I've not even wished my wife happy Women's Day. Maybe
Come
I
on,
feel
boy.
I feel she has been so busy today and she's not aware of what is happening around the world today. So I just rather want to let it be like that. Let it just go, like not raising the dust. Huh? Before I would just go and tap her and now say Happy Women's Day. She would just shout equal rights for all. And
But
then
I'm sure you know about this day because on Facebook and a lot of places on social media they already mentioned.
yeah, that
So
is
maybe
true.
she's waiting you to
Eh?
say this.
You sure she's waiting for me? I don't think so.
Yes.
She has been so busy today, and I like it that way. I like it that way. I don't want to be reminded that we would have to share this, share that. I'll take care of the baby on Thursday. She'll take care of the baby on Wednesday, and on Friday would be my turn again. And on Saturday, in fact, since you are the man, you will do 2 days. I mean, I'll do 1 day. Hi, that's serious.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate.
Yeah, the awareness is seriously growing everywhere. People are becoming more aware, and the willingness to want to share things amongst gender equally is increasing, and it's beautiful. I'm in support of that.
Yeah, you're right.
So let's go back to work.
Yeah.
So those non-governmental organizations are what we're talking about. So they want to support causes. Can you see that we have the wrong spelling here? Now let me put it on red so you can see that it's strongly spelled. Can you see it? Let me bolden it. Causes. So it could have been OUR, right? CES. Sorry, COURCES. I'm spelling something else. I'm writing something else. Okay, so that is that. They want to support movements, They want to encourage fairness in the society. Maybe take care of the less privileged, and so on and so forth. That's their target.
Yeah.
They want to give care. Okay, they want to raise resources for certain movement, maybe to take care of refugees, just like the ones we have somewhere around Ukraine. So highlight, another one could be highlight topical issues or causes and actively campaign to correct them. Example, the human rights violations, flaws in government policies and environmental issues. And then they now start putting up some certain pressure groups, coming up with representatives to speak for them, going into Beijing to have conferences and to advocate the woman rights.
Yes, we have this. I mean, UNDP. We call it a part of UN organization. They take care about this guy. I mean, the people that they don't have a place to sit on it and all these things. Yeah. So maybe UN is really non-government organization. Yeah.
Speak to your phone a little so I can hear you better.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, clear. Go ahead.
Okay, I said we have a part of UN. We call it UNDP.
Okay.
It's under UN family. I mean, they are a non-government organization, like because they take care about all this homeless and these people, they don't have a place to stay on it because of this terrorist and all these problems happen in the war. So they take care about them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm just actually becoming aware of it.
Yeah.
So all these are things that could be the primary purpose of some organization. Yeah. So we are into a new section right now. So here now, we have to look at certain things. We'll have to look at trade blocks. We'll have to look at the regulation of international trade. We'll look at the role of customs organization, documentation relating to imports and what import duties and tariffs, the use of Incoterms, payment mechanism to enable supply, the impact of currency on sourcing, currency regulation. I bet you will enjoy this section. You will enjoy it.
I hope.
Okay, so trade blocks. These trade blocks are actually formed by a number of nation states. Nation states talking about countries, and they represent what? Receiving certain kind of benefits for the internal trading. Certain kind of benefit for internal trading. When they come and form this block, they intend to want to remove certain restrictions and extend tariffs to one another. And it can also lead to the reduction of import duties within the block. So common market also is one. Common market is a trade block. You've heard of common market, it's a trade block where the member nation might choose to waive tariffs or duties for import and export between themselves. It's a strategic alliance for states, for nation states and countries. So we have the free trade also. For the Nayana, they carve out certain territories and have members of it. And it's a trade block where the member nations waive tariffs, the same thing, or duties for import and export between themselves. So we've talked about the common market, free trade areas, and that. So all these things are good, but yet there are certain disadvantages that they carry too. Okay, they have both advantages and disadvantages. But before that, let's take a look at the regulation of international trade. So this is outlined in the dispute statement understanding, which includes, mark that word, dispute statement understanding, which includes procedures of review panel and their function, conciliation and mediation, appellate reviews, timeframes for decision making and arbitration. So you must be conversant with all these terms. Now, these regulations of international trades, will tell you when there are troubles, when there are disputes, when there are misrepresentations and misunderstanding, how do we intend to go about them without resulting to worse scenarios or worse cases? What should we do? Let's set up measures. So they come up with procedures of reviewing panels and their functions, They also look at conciliation and mediation. When we talk about mediation, instead of going into the court, we now start coming up with how third party can come into it and resolve the challenges. Then appellate reviews also. So all these are ways for dispute and the rest ways for dispute and the rest to be resolved without appearing in court or without filing litigation against one another. There are time frames for making decisions also, where the verdict must be passed. So then arbitration, you know about the arbitral court. So all these are looking at ways of taking challenges, because sometimes when you appear before the judge in the court, even the winner at the end of the day may not even win. He may not even win. Both parties may lose, thinking that the verdict has been passed in favor of the other, but yet the trade may be normal. We don't want that. So that's why we came up with all these regulations to ensure that we are settling out of court and then we are still, staying in business. There are roles of custom organization. And part of it is to ensure that the quotas given in tariffs are not exceeded. There are always quotas given. So these custom organizations will have to ensure that these quotas are maintained within the pecking order. They also make that all goods are properly accounted for when entering a country. They may want to ensure that the documentations are right. People can misrepresent things in documentations if you're not careful. And what could have worth $5,000 could be entered in a way that you feel is $500, and instead of charging them $5,000 import duties, you would be calling for $500. So the custom must ensure that the documentations are correct. And there are certain documents that allow the movement of goods and services within the EU, or maybe a certain country. One, we have the T1 document. We have the import and export license. We have the single administrative document. We have the new computerized transit system and custom declaration service. So all these must be spotted out by the EU, the customs. These are documents. And then another important one is the origin of goods relating to import within the EU and EFA. And speaking in regards of CIPS, but other countries have theirs. Because you want to know where the products maybe that is passing through your waterways are coming from, or maybe the product that's coming into your country, you want to know where it's coming from. What if it's coming from a restricted zone? You deny it access. So that's that. So there are non-preferential origin and preferential origin. That is to say, products from certain countries may attract certain waivers. You want to give them some kind of discounting because of those trade blocks we talked about. So documents that facilitate international imports and exports. One, the purchase order. This is an examination question, so please remember, note it. Purchase order, bill of lading, insurance certificate, certificate of origin, and carnet. These are on one line. All these are documents that facilitate international import and export. Situations where a carnet may be required could be for the movement of instruments, which must arrive at every destination on the tour uninterrupted. Can you see that? So you know the function of a carnet now, where a carnet is required. So you remember that. I guess they will give you one question within this line item I just mentioned. So you know that is for the movement of instruments, which must arrive at every destination on the tour uninterrupted. There are certain things that you mustn't open, maybe because of what is being contained in there. So such instruments must carry the carnet. You don't want to go and start opening explosive, would you? Hello?
Yes.
You don't want to open explosives.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at those documents and know when which one is required and when what is required. So import duties and tariffs. This is strictly for tax charge
Okay.
that may be applied where items are imported into a country from outside its border. Okay? They may not let the goods in if the import duties are not paid. Before you can take them to the final destination, they may be calling for the import duties. Yeah. There are certain other documents like the free movement of goods within the EU. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are breaking it down little by little and we are moving on.
Yeah.
So when you're moving into the EU, the United Kingdom, rather with certain documents, the custom agencies expect the organization sending the goods to provide ad valorem. That is like an estimate of the value of the goods. They need that estimate to do what? To calculate the duty owed to the local customs agency. Remember the word ad valorem. That is an estimate of the value of the goods.
Mm-hmm.
So that value is required for the custom to be able to calculate the duties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those ones are things that we may see in exams. That's why I want you to get them. So we have duty and VAT reliefs in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, now I said when commodities meet particular criteria in the integrated tariff of the United Kingdom based on their movement within the EU, they may be subject to relief of duty. This means that duty is not required or reduced in value. The same may also apply to the payment of VAT in some situations. Within certain areas, you may not pay duties, or maybe you pay, a reduced amount.
Sorry, could you just repeat this paragraph?
Now listen, when commodities meet particular criteria in the integrated tariff of the United Kingdom, based on their movement within the EU, they may be subject to relief of duty. There are this is to say, there are certain criteria stipulated in the integrated tariff. So when your commodities that you are importing, or maybe you want to pass through the EU with them, because of their criteria, that may do what? Attract certain relief. Okay.
Okay.
For instance, I don't know how to explain it. They may say, for so and so product, do not charge, allow it to pass or allow it to come. or charge it just 10% of the total value. Can you see that? Examples of duty relief of goods being imported to the UK are custom warehousing relief. They're giving you example: custom warehousing relief, inward processing relief, outward processing relief, and end user relief. So all these reliefs are waivers for you. Custom warehousing relief could be at the time that it has to be in the warehouse, you may not pay anything, or you pay a reduced amount. That is that. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, most importantly, I think you will have about 4 or 5 questions from the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. And this ICC actually published a list of commercial rules known as the Incoterms. There are certain advantages of using the Incoterms, and one of the biggest among them is that they can easily take the place of otherwise lengthy contract clause. Look at it. That is certain one of the biggest advantage. I want to put it on red so you can see. I still would bold it. It's an examination question. So the advantage is that Incoterms can actually take the place of otherwise lengthy contract clauses. So if you understand the Incoterms, in certain areas, you may not need to understand certain contracts. You may not need to put together those contracts. You may just call the terms. In this area, this is what is going to play. In this area, this and this would not be in play when you're putting together a terms. So they can be used to represent information when included in contract. One of it is that the point at which goods will be considered to have been delivered. Which party is responsible for organizing transportation and what form would this take? Okay. That is that. Number 3, which party pays to insure the goods? Which party is responsible for arranging this? Which party is responsible for making duty and tariff arrangement and arranging passages through customs control agencies? Now, when we talk about party, we're talking about buyer and supplier. Which of them? Is it a buyer that will take care of tariffs? There's an Incoterms for it. The goods will be delivered at the buyer's premises. There is an Incoterm for it. So when you call forth those Incoterms in the contract, it shows that you may not in detail start describing those requirements. So that's why we say it can take the place of otherwise lengthy contractual clauses. So payment mechanism to enable supplier. We just introduced Incoterms. Remember, we did not talk about Incoterms in detail.
Yeah.
We've not started talking about it. We would. And then the questions that are forwarded to you, I have them well crafted. About 11 questions on this area with the answers ready there for you to understand it.
Yeah, thank you.
So when you go through it, you would learn so much of it. But yet we still have to talk about it in the next chapter. We just introduced it here in chapter 3. And we are moving on. So there's no way you'll be dealing with a supplier, either locally or internationally, without calling forth the payment mechanism. And one important thing is for you to ensure that you're maintaining an healthy cash flow. as you're running the business, ensure that you are maintaining a good cash flow. This means that securing the most beneficial method can be essential to ensure business continuity. Without money at certain times, there will not be business continuity. So for both the buyer and the supplier to have business continuity, they must ensure they have come up with the most beneficial method of receiving payment and making payment. So the payment mechanism is used to reduce payment and delivery risk in international trade. There's what is called the payment mechanism spectrums. The payment mechanism spectrum is like a balance that tells you certain things. When it will benefit the buyer, this is when it will benefit the buyer. And when it will not benefit the buyer, it will rather benefit the supplier. So you as the buyer, you want to ensure that the balance is favoring you more than it's favoring your supplier. So what do? You look at every other strands, every other legs of the payment mechanism, which first of all, it is the open account that you would consider. Term/time draft, site draft, letter of credit, cash in advance. Let me just explain a little here. Let's pick cash in advance. You want to make a buy from a supplier in the UK, and the supplier is requesting for cash in advance. Who would that favor? Hello?
Yes. What?
You are making a buy from a supplier in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
You look at the lead time, and the lead time will take 4 months. So the cash in advance, the money you pay in advance, that's cash in advance. The money you pay before they deliver the goods, who would that money favor most? Is it you or the supplier?
Supplier, sure.
Yeah, because the supplier will still hold your goods and still hold your money.
Sure.
So even before you receive the goods, the supplier could have turned your money around and have gotten certain profits.
You're right.
So cash in advance means a downtime for the buyer, cost down the financial downtime. So that's why they would rather be asking for what? Cash in advance. As against that, you may be asking for open account. I don't want to give you the money. Let me keep the money somewhere that you can see. But you won't take it. Because cash in advance is risky. What if they receive the goods, they receive the money, and they are not being able to deliver the goods? As long as the goods stays with them, what happened? You are losing out. So you don't want to go into a deal that would require you to give money in advance, except you have certain security measures of securing the product to your delivery, to your premises. So we have the site draft. The site draft favors both the buyer and the seller. That is 50-50. It's at the middle ground. Can you see it here? The site draft is that, oh, we would ensure that the money is in the account, but we will not release it. You will not take it. But if you bring it to a certain place and deliver it there, you can now take it. Just show me the draft that the money is in the account.
Okay.
I want to just see that the money is in the account, so before I can release my goods. Can you see that? I'm not taking the money, but I want to ensure that you have the money. Because it will cost me to send it back to my country. I haven't delivered it into your premises, and I discover that you don't have money. How can I not sell it back to my country? What if that is your own negotiation strategy? Knowing that if I should bring it, I may not be able to take it back without begging you to buy it at a discount. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, clear.
So that's the few we can take here. So you go to the book and then you look at. I've taken the ones that your exams would cover. So you go and look at the other ones and ensure that at the close of chapter 3, you would see payment mechanism diagram.
Okay.
So talking about currency, in your supply chain, you must learn how to manage currency. There are certain factors you must consider. So it varies. You know, the market fluctuates, exchange rate fluctuates. So a more common way of mitigating the potential impact of currency fluctuation is by carrying out currency hedging. Currency what? Hedging.
Hedging.
This is an exam question. Currency hedging. So hedging is a proactive risk management technique where the buyer will use different techniques and products available for commercial banks to minimize exposure. Hedging is a proactive risk management technique, hear it again, where the buyer will use different techniques and products available to minimize exposure. Now, we talk about fluctuations. That is to say that the market would, currency may change in value over time, right?
Yes.
Over time. You don't want to ensure that, you want to ensure rather that at the time that your supplier is paying you money or sending your product, the value still remain the same. You still would want to ensure that the money that you are paying, you're gonna be paying would not be so much as against their own currency over there. So you look through the banks and look for the most beneficial ways that you can pay without being affected by a change of value. So when sourcing internationally, in addition to many other factors, the currency of the contract will be a key concern for all contracting parties. So this must be agreed beforehand. And it's an important part of the contract. Which currency are we using? There are essential currency considerations, looking at it from the regulatory perspective. First of all, which currency can we access easily? That both of us can access easily, both the buyer and the seller. Or you look at the one you can access easily. Ability to make and receive payments in that currency. Can you see how long it took you to make payment to my own country? Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If I had sent you an account that will enable you pay in the Baghdad, in the Iranian currency, you could have preferred that the most.
Because I saw the charges that they charge you $10 for the money you sent.
Yeah.
Didn't they?
Yeah.
But if it's your internal transfer, could you have lost that money?
Sorry.
If it was an internal transfer that I provided
Yes.
an Iranian account number, you couldn't have lost that money, that 10% that you were charged.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So you look for the currency that will enable you to make payments and to receive payment.
Mhm.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then later you look at other general consideration. So this is about how you manage your currency, because deciding to want to pay in the other country's currency may make you to lose certain amount of money through the exchange, like you lost $10
Mhm.
yesterday. I saw it.
Yes.
So this brings us to the end of chapter 3.
Okay.
Now I want to sound this to you. You can go back and front and listen to this tape.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
when you're coming up to want to understand something or certain things better, you could be required in some areas to go back to your manual and look at it in the textbook and understand it better. If it is not there, Google it. If the understanding in the textbook is not there, Google it and learn better.
Google.
But
Okay.
learn fast. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to start with chapter 4 tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. Excuse me. May we
Hold on
start
first. Before you ask me that question, just hold on. Let's stop the sharing, and then I want to stop the recording.
Okay.
Okay.